Section 3, Intentional Content and Professional Educator. Remember the video watching norms we discussed in Section 1? Pause, rewind, or watch the video as many times as you wish. Complete the Flipping Your Classroom workbook as you go through the presentation. You may pause the video at any time to allow you time to respond to questions posed throughout the presentation or to write questions that you may have at any given point. As we discuss intentional content, you will determine what the best use of face-to-face time is with your students and what topics within your subject matter lend themselves to being delivered through video. The term video in flipped learning refers to actual video, screencast, or any other video creation tools. First, let's recap what intentional content is. Intentional content is intended to replace large group directed instruction where the lesson content and/or resources are chosen by a teacher that meet a specific learning outcome. It can be content that, in a traditional classroom, was presented in class but with the flip model is assessed by students independently outside the large group instruction time. Intentional content is commonly developed and delivered through online videos but could include other independently assessed resources. The common factor is that teachers know what they want their students to know and/or be able to do. Allowing students the opportunity to independently assess intentional content frees up class time and helps them to become independent and resourceful, which in turn is time that can be spent exploring content at a deeper level through collaborative and inquiry-based activities. Each of the following instructional videos was created by a teacher. Notice how each video reflects the personality of the individual teacher and has been designed to explain a specific learning goal.
When using his superpowers, the superhero A will say his name and put up his big muscle arms and say A.
A.
Number 13, hat. The girl wore a big hat.
Distance from 0 to 1 is the same as the distance from 1 to 2. Likewise, it's the same as the distance from 2 to 3, and so on and so on.
Now with those phrases, what we can do is simply say me gusta and then attach them to the end. So an example, I could say, picking from that list, me gusta tocar la guitarra, me gusta cantar.
Well, see, you guys had developed this massive bomb that you used on Japan after World War II. And we wanted to be big and bad as well and powerful. So we started to try to create nuclear weapons to rival yours.
What became the big bomb?
And of course we have command economies, and other words for those are planned, centrally planned, command and control, or socialism.
Welcome class. Today I will be sharing with you how to make a fruit smoothie. These things are scrumdiddlyumptious, tasty, good.
Because, as you can see, it's fizzing right here. It's producing a gas, and it's bubbling over.
Tendons, as you see here, connect muscles to bones. Here you see the gastrocnemius, the calf muscle, being connected to the calcaneus.
Another thing I want to talk about is cells are not boring. When I grew up, I had this idea that a cell was like a bag of jelly and you had stuff like a nucleus inside it and it would essentially float around.
Here in Woodland Park, we're at a higher altitude, so the temperature is actually boiling at 92 degrees Celsius.
A biography is a story, a non-fiction story, written about someone by someone else. And I have an example here. It is my Lady Gaga biography.
I'll just say 8, yeah. And that gives us a molar mass of 44 grams.
Pringles potato chip bag. Now compared to what we saw, it's totally full. Boils a lot of action.
Diagram triangles, right triangles. Hypotenuse is across from the right angle.
Legs are A and B. Hypotenuse C.
Plug the numbers in and see how easy it can be.
A squared plus B squared is 2 squared.
Here in the middle, we have two friendly sumo wrestlers who are eating the sushi roll. Okay, the one on the left is eating 3/4 of the sushi roll.
That's the Chicago Corn Cobs, and they contain 16 apartment units per floor. If floors 21 to 60 are for apartment living, how many apartments are there in both Cobbs?
I'm excited. You're excited. I know you guys just want to get through algebra, and so you want to get through it, and I'm going to get to it. We're going to talk about radicals and square roots, and the difference between the two is very slight. This little sign right here, this symbol, is called a radical.
There are pros and cons of creating your own video or curating other sources. When you create your own video, it makes it more personal for the students. It's like they have their own one-to-one time with their teacher instead of someone they don't know. However, creating your own video does take time. And you're probably thinking, yeah, time, I don't have that. Or I don't know when I'll have the ability to get that done. But with that being said, even though it's new to you, you are not alone. You can work with your department to create these videos instead of doing it all by yourself. And remember, these videos don't have to be perfect. We will be talking about video characteristics later. When curating other resources, the good thing is that most of the legwork is done for you. However, with that being said, to make it more personal to your students and to meet their exact needs, tweaking will need to be done. We suggest adding an introduction and summarizing slide and/or clip. No matter if you use your own video or one you curate, both have common characteristics. You do not have to worry about students interrupting with questions. You do not have to worry about calling on students due to behavior. You have 0 interruptions. Think about how much instructional time you waste dealing with student behavior. This certainly will not eliminate all student misbehavior, but will reduce it since there will be more collaboration going on in the classroom instead of sit and get. You also don't have to worry about repeating yourself over and over and over again, class after class. Students are able to pause and rewind however many times they need to. Some students find it fun to pause the teacher. All of this adds up to more time in the classroom to apply skills and extend understanding through collaborative discussions, small groups, inquiry-based learning, and other instructional methods. Now that we've talked about what intentional content is and the pros and cons of creating versus curating, let's talk about making the shift. Direct instruction is often used to deliver content that has a low depth of knowledge level. The bottom 2 tiers of DOK are good choices when deciding what to shift out of the large group instructional time and into the individual time. Think about flipping your classroom as flipping DOK, where the large group instructional time would be made up of the higher level DOK. We're not saying that lecture is not important, but there is a time and a place for it, and that it may look different. It is appropriate to use it to clear up common misconceptions. It may look different. Instead of the teacher talking to the class, the teacher asks the students, "What are your questions about last night's video?" This leads into a class discussion or small group discussion, not a lecture. Think about your last lesson. What content did you deliver through direct instruction? And what level of DOK did it fall? Can you shift what was delivered in your direct instruction in the classroom to make it more accessible to students outside of the classroom? Listen, I know that making videos can be scary, but remember, it's just content. It's just information that you're sharing. You do not have to put on a big act. Thus, your videos don't have to be perfect. Here are a few suggestions. Build interaction into your lessons. Watching a video is a passive act. Anyone can watch a video. The question is, how do we know our students are actively engaged in the viewing process? First, we need to make sure that our students know how to watch a video. Model in class what is expected. Show them how to stop, rewind, and reflect. Next, have students complete some type of deliverable, whether it is completing guided notes, summarizing and/or reflecting on what they have learned, or take an online quiz after the video. When students enter the class and begin the first assignment or warm-up that relates to the content from the video, it will become very apparent who watched it. However, you must plan for students to have misconceptions. Show them what to do if they have misconceptions while watching the video. For example, have them write down their questions prior to coming to class and place them on a parking lot when they come in. Have them write down the timestamp on the video on the part in which they got confused. From there, you can generate whole group discussion or small group discussions on misconceptions. As far as the video itself, make sure that your microphone and volume is up so that the focus is adjusted. You want your students to be able to hear and see you and the content being presented. When creating a video, create a script. The script doesn't have to be word for word, but it helps to keep you on task and not waste your students' time. Animate your voice. Be exciting. If you have a monotone voice throughout the entire video, it can make it very dry and boring. Think like your students would. For example, once you read a problem, say, "Wow, that's a really hard problem." You're probably freaking out right now, but calm down and let's read it again and complete it together. Highlight key ideas or concepts by making your voice overly dramatic. Other ways to highlight key points are to add annotations or callouts and to zoom in and out. Spice it up any way you can, like having a cool intro with a popular song. If you normally make jokes in class, make jokes in your video. Keep it short and to the point. Remember that students can pause and rewind. Don't waste their time. It is suggested that your video be 1.5 minutes per grade level. Thus, for a 6th grade video, it would be, 6 times 1.5, 9 minutes. Finally, instead of doing these videos by yourself, get together with your department and create these videos together. Instead of your students having one math teacher, they now have 3 or 4. Pause and answer the question in your workbook. Once some of the direct instruction is shifted out of your classroom, what will you do in your classroom? How will you engage your students in higher order thinking? The essential questions. There are a wide variety of reasons for why someone becomes a teacher. However, the classroom experience is different from what one might expect. Think about if this is true for you. As you watch the following clip regarding flipped learning experiences, think about why you became a teacher. Why are you still teaching today? Do the reasons for continuing to teach still match the reasons you started teaching? If not, what has changed?
One of the things that I really like about the flipped model is the time that it gives us in class. So when we were first given the Mind Missions curriculum, it was hard for us to embrace it a little bit because I think we had this thinking that there wasn't time for it. Yeah, it's a great engineering project. It's great for them to do that, but we don't have time because we need them to learn about what's in each region. We need them to know the content. But if we're able to find a way for them to learn that at home, and it's 2.5 to 3 minutes a night, then we're able to make time for the hands-on activities that we know are meaningful to them. And that's really cool to be able to say, yeah, I can do it and I can do both and I have time for it. The other cool thing is the engagement factor. I feel like the first night that I assigned the video as homework, they weren't as excited. But when they came to class the next day, a few of them didn't do it and they weren't able to participate in the Mind Missions activity. And that was a big bummer for them. So it became a huge incentive to go home and do your homework and learn the information so that you could do the cool and engaging activity. And also they just like the video. They think it's fun. They talk about it all the time. They're trying to figure out whose voice it is. So things like that are cool.
At home, we watch a video about the regions. It's one video, but we only watch a part of it about one region, and then we take notes and we come to school and do an activity about it. And we're looking forward to doing the Mind Missions because they're so fun at school. So it's like almost impossible to forget to do your homework.
The most recent flipped lesson that I created was about water molecules. Water is a huge important thing that we learn in biology, and instead of creating my own video, which I have done in the past, I found a good flipped video, and my kids had to watch the video and take notes. And the next day in class we did a Willie the Water Strider lab where they had to basically find out why Willie's family was sinking into the water. And so taking what they learned from their flip video, all the properties of water, and applying it to our lab in class allowed them to be hands-on with the water properties. And so you share it as much as you want to, and it looks like it's a solution now. But eventually what happens? Have you had like a time have you forgotten to mention? One of the huge benefits of flipping that I found within the last year, this is my second year flipping, is that it's given me time to spend like face-to-face time with each student or with a group of students, whereas before I found myself standing at the board literally telling them what to write down on a piece of paper, and I wasn't interacting, I wasn't differentiating with my kids, and my students weren't getting the hands-on practice that we could have had I flipped prior to that. And so now we're getting 2 to 3 more times the practice of the content that we're learning because I flip.
I'm Maddie, and I'm in Mrs. Hahn's biology class, and we used flipped learning in her class. So the last time we did it is we had a lesson on the properties of water. So we came home and we watched a video all about the properties of water that she sent us the link to and took notes. And then when we came to class, we did experiments and stations on it, but we already knew all the information, so it was a lot easier.
Hi, my name is Donna Hawkins, and I teach 6th grade math and 7th grade GT math. This year, we've had students coming in from several districts and several different teachers, and I noticed a gap when we were doing operations with integers. So what we did is, for those who needed it, we provided a flip video that supported the addition of integers with both negative and positive, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And that was in order to enable the students to close that gap. And so I put it out there, and the next morning I asked if it was helpful, and the students' response was amazing. The next day we had a little bit of a rotation station, and that way they could go around and they could support what they had learned, adding, dividing, multiplying, and subtracting the integers.
Hi, I'm in Miss Hawkins' 7th grade math class. I was doing an assignment, but I was having a bit of trouble with it. But Miss Hawkins later that day posted a helpful video, and I watched it. It was a great video.
So after I watched that video, I came back to math class the next day, and I was able to complete the assignment with ease, and I got 100 on it, so.
While your role changes in a flipped learning environment, you may think that your importance remains unchanged. This, however, is not true. You may become an even more important part of student learning. Teachers are able to know each student better, differentiate instruction, and implement different pedagogical strategies based on individual student needs. They determine what content is best suited for large group instruction time versus individual time. By shifting the mode of delivery, you are able to gain additional class time to be suited for students to explore high levels of DOK. Select from the list provided the things you do in the classroom besides direct instruction. Create a list of classroom activities you will implement once you flip your classroom. You can plan to do some of this later. The definition of professional educator is going to be different than it was 10 or 20 years ago. 10 or 20 years ago, the professional was the teacher. They were the content professional in the room. We are not saying that this has changed, but teachers were the holder of information, and the students needed to go to that teacher to get the information. Teachers are no longer the keepers of the information. Instead, we take more of a tutorial role. In flipped learning, the teacher is still the content expert because they are being asked questions on the fly in real time, but they must be okay with not knowing everything. The role is to help students, not to feed them information. For us to do that well, we must remain up to date in our content and not be afraid to ask questions from other professionals or give students resources to find it on their own. The quantity of information that's out there is scary. Take a look at the picture. It is a picture of an open fire hydrant which states that getting information off the internet is like taking a drink from a fire hydrant. That is what our world is like. We can't sip from a fire hydrant when it's open like that. As professional educators, we are the learning specialists because we filter the content. We model the process of information curation. We know what is right for our students, and we know when they need it. We model how to be a learner by networking with other educators, whether they be live in our building or at the district level, or they may be digital. We must find the learner in ourselves by being lifelong learners when it comes to technology, because our world is always changing and our students are always up to date. Our students can also be a resource by asking them what works well and what doesn't when it comes to technology use or content delivery. When you build relationships and trust with your students, they know that you have their interest in mind. As professional educators or learning specialists, we should embrace and learn instead of resist, which will make our jobs that much harder if we do. Professional educators are conscious and reflective about what they do every day. Pause and reflect on the question, what classroom activities do you plan to implement when you start to flip your classroom? You're probably still wondering what all this looks like in the classroom. Thus, if you would like to see examples of how real teachers have implemented flipped learning in their classroom and their experiences, visit the PLE Resource Center at ple.gcsnc.com. We have provided examples for math, ELA, science, social studies, band, art, world languages, and physical education. We suggest to watch 2 videos, one that is related to your content, and then one that is related to another content of your choice. Now let's check for your understanding. You will need to sort the statements you see in chronological order. The statements are: teacher-created video lessons, large group instruction time is decreased, students access video lessons, and teacher utilizes class time for student-centered activity. You will complete this activity on Edmodo in the Flipping Your Classroom group. The group code is FKPIJG. The activity is identified as a quiz on Edmodo and is called Flipping Your Classroom, Part 1, Making the Shift. Check for understanding. The steps for completing this assignment are provided. Feel free to pause and read through the steps if you'd like. Thank you for completing Flipping Your Classroom, Part 1, Making the Shift. Make sure you bring your completed workbook to the face-to-face session during your summer training. See you soon! These sources were used in the development of this course.